Well, howdy folks. Today we got a little bit of a different project. We're still working on the Plymouth here, but I ended up getting a bead roller off of a friend, and I can't thank him enough for allowing me to borrow it and bring it home with me, especially after meeting him for the first time. So anyway, here's the bead roller that he is allowing me to borrow. Well, it don't really have the dies in it that I really need to do what I want to do. And what we're working on is what they call the toe board on this Plymouth. So to kind of give you an idea, these are the impressions that we want to make, along with this one here. Along here, there's a few of them in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make dies on the lay there to do these impressions. All right, so I was doing some measuring. So the bottom width down here is 3/4 of an inch. And I happen to find a tool over in my bin over there, since I have several of them that's already pre-ground. For this one, if you look, I mean, that angle is almost perfect. So we're going to use this for the angle on that and the profile there. And I'm going to make them both the same on both sides. You can see they match pretty close on both sides. Remember, this don't have to be perfect. I want it close. So I already got some material up in the lathe. So let's go over there and let's start getting it cut and see how it turns out. All right, I got you over here at the lathe. You can see I used layout fluid. Actually, it's not layout fluid. I used a blue Sharpie marker to kind of scribe everything into this. So these two lines here are the 3/4 inch base, or the bottom of it over there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and plunge into here and plunge into here. And then it's 230 thousandths depth. And all we're going to do is cut this center out. The outer diameter of this is really close to 3 inches. So all I did was, skim it in here. So all we're going to do is just use this. Then the only other thing we got to do is just bore the hole in it. So it's rather simple. Let's see how it turns out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark or get this centered up on the 3/4 line, or the first line, which is going to be right about there. And I'm going to zero my dowel indicator down here, because you remember we need 3/4 for the bottom. So then all we have to do is mark or turn our dial back to 0. And then we're going to take small passes. We're only going to cut in maybe 10. I was just going to say, because it's probably going to chatter a little bit on us. Boy, it wants to chatter a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to slow down the lathe a little bit, see if we can get it to stop from chattering, because it chattered quite a bit there. Let's see how this does. Okay, it's starting to form in there a little nice. It's still wanting to chatter on me a little bit. You got to keep in mind, whenever you're using a pretty rounded tip or blunt like that, it's a lot of head pressure, and it's hard to sometimes stop it from vibrating or chattering. So let me go ahead and get this finished up here, and then I'll bring it back and show you what it looks like. Then we'll start boring this hole. Alright, so I got all this done here. You can see it chattered a little bit, but really that won't hurt anything. It shouldn't make too much of a mark in the metal. So we're going to go ahead and get it drilled, and then we'll cut it off and flip it. Okay, so we got that bored out. We might have to skim it with a boring bar here to get it to the final size. It's not crazy critical. What we need is this bushing here to fit inside, and you see it barely does. So we will have to get a boring bar in there and go ahead and clean that up a little bit. All right. All we were doing right there is just to bottom that bit out, kind of flatten off the bottom down there a little bit. Then I'm going to set my dial to 0 here, and then we'll pull it out. Take a quick measurement because it should be close to 7/8. So we got about 20 thousandths roughly to come out. So not a whole lot. All right, I wonder how it fits now. Yep, that's actually about as about the fit the other one was. So far this piece here is pretty much done. All we got to do is deburr this. I'm going to saw cut this off and then clean up that face. But otherwise, this piece is done. Let me show you what it looks like after I get it cleaned up, and then we'll test fit it. Well, here's the die, part of the die we was working on, and you can see it profiled in there nice. Radius, the radius has turned out nice and everything on it. It does seem to fit pretty well. It fits on the bead roller pretty well. So, you know, this is one side. We got to work on the other side yet. But to give you an idea on how it looks, and I'll try to show this, but it might be difficult for you guys to see. But you can see it fits pretty close. I mean, it's not exact, don't get me wrong on that, but it is pretty close. And it should be fine for what we're doing here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start working on the other side of it. And then maybe we'll get a test piece and run it through the die and see how it turns out and go from there. So let's get on the lathe and start working on the other side. So I got you over here at the lathe and just figured I'd go over it real quick. This is like 2 1/4 stock. We have to cut it down a little bit, but what we're going to do is we're going to cut down the outside, and then we'll bring our other cutter in, and then bring our other cutter in that way, and then we're just going to saw cut this off and then face it. But we got to bore it as well. So I got this marked off. Actually 2 inches is about here, but we're going to go a little bit past, so we have the saw cut. And that dimension I don't think is crazy critical, as long as I get this side lined up to the other one somewhere in there like that. So I don't know if this is an issue, or don't know if this is the way to do it, but I went ahead and counted the teeth on the bead roller and found out that it's a 1.5 ratio. So what I did was take this diameter divided by 1.5 to give me this diameter. I don't know if that's critical. In my mind it makes sense, but so we got to cut this down to 1.9. So let's get started. And all we're doing here is touching off again. And then setting our dial down here to 0. Since we know we got to take off quite a bit, I mean, I'm going to try to take 100 thousandths at a pass. We'll see how it does, but it may or may not do it. This is a new cutter. I just swapped it out. That is a CNMG cutter. Slow it down just a little bit. Well, it's not going to do that. So let's try half of that, I guess. I am not sure why it wants to chatter on me. Let's take a measurement here real quick. Okay, we need about 100 thousandths yet to come off. All right, so we're just going to take a skim coat. So we're going to slow this feed rate down a little bit here. It's basically we're taking a spring pass. Alright, so that's our final pass on this. So we're going to go ahead and start cutting the profile into this and then see how it turns out. Alright, so to cut the profile into this, we're going to use the same cutters we used before. And you know how it chattered on me before, so we'll just go with it and see how it does. And go from there. So we know we have to go in like 200 thousandths, and then we're just going to try to make it match. All I can say is this, let's go at it and see what happens. We're just going to touch off there, set our 0. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this up and try to get an eyeball. So I think the first one's going to be right around there, and we can adjust that. But so I'm going to set my 0 down here, and let's cut in. I think it was 230 thousandths. Now keep in mind we got to go the thickness of the material, and I'm using 18 gauge steel, so we gotta you know, think about that. So you got to give it room for the material to actually form into the die, otherwise it won't work for you. Like I said, I'm using 18 gauge metal, so it's a little thicker than what most cars are today. But let's get started and see what we can do here. And we're going to start off with light cuts because it's probably going to want to chatter on us. I say, I don't know if you could hear that, but it's definitely on the verge of chattering here. So we'll just slowly work it in here and see what happens. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to try something here, maybe see if it helps us. We're going to change the live center to one that's a little bit more shallow, and we're going to try to run this guy all the way up as far as we can. So we need about that much clearance. Let's see if that helps us any. I don't know if you noticed that, but that other live center, it must not be as rigid as this one here, because this one here definitely made a heck of a difference. So that's something you can always look for and try. But I mean, it looks like I could take a full depth cut. We still got to go a ways down. What I'm noticing is I might have mis-eyeballed that. So we're gonna not take it as far over, and hopefully we can gain that distance back up. If not, I mean, it is what it is. All right. We're getting close to where we already need to be, so I'm going to stop there on that side, and then we're going to start cutting on this side and try to work it in. Like I said, if you look at that, it's close, but I might have mis-eyeballed before. But let's start on this side and see what happens. Well, I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to eyeball this again, but we're going to go short, say, I don't know, somewhere in there, and then we'll try and compare it. So I'm going to set the 0 down here, and actually we could just plunge in from here. And then we'll just work that way. I don't know if you guys can tell, but apparently that other tailstock that I have, it either needs tightened up or something needs done with it, because this one here is performing 10 times better than what the previous one did. So that's a good sign. At least I know what the problem is. But there's definitely an issue there. So we need to come over here and touch this up. And I think I'm going to stop there. I mean, I'll turn off this light and bring this in, but if you look, well, it's still hard for you guys to see from what I'm seeing through the camera, but you can see there is a little bit of a gap. Well, that is for the metal that I'm going to be using, which is, like I said, it's 18 gauge. So I'm going to stop there because that looks pretty good. It looks pretty even all the way across. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth these corners over, you know, and sand all this stuff. And then all we got to do is bore it and then cut it off. But otherwise, I think these dies are pretty much done. I like it. So I went ahead and smoothed everything out, used the file and everything, got everything somewhat decent. It looks good. I'm very happy with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a drill bit in here and we're going to drill a pilot hole. So we have everything already set up. So let's get drilling. Alright, so what I'm hoping is I can drill it with a 5/8 drill bit and kind of hit it on size. It doesn't look like it's that critical, so I don't know if I want to step it up. I'm still thinking about that. I decided I'm going to step it up, so we're going to start out with a 9/16 drill bit and kind of get it knocked out, and then we'll probably use a boring bar to finish the size. I don't think it's really crazy critical, but I think that's what we're gonna do. Alright, so we got it drilled to 9/16. So the finished size is 5/8. So let's get a boring bar in here and finish up the size. So I'm going to look at my cabinet here and I found a 5/8 reamer. So we're just going to go ahead and ream it. I mean, it's close enough. Why not do it? It'll actually give us a more accurate size anyway. So let's get this punched through here. Alright, so we got everything pretty much done. We're going to go ahead and get this sawed off, and then I'll finish, I'll probably face that in the other small lathe. But other than that, this piece is done too. So I have you set up here in the shaper here. I don't have a broach kit, so I can't put a keyway in this. The one shaft over there has a keyway that's kind of, looks like it's kind of missing and mushroomed over or something in the bead roller itself. So I'm going to just use the shaper to put this keyway in. And I'm not going to go critical on width and size. I'm just going to cut it in and it should work fine on the bead roller. So let's get started here on doing this. It's actually rather simple. I already have everything set up. I'm using a boring bar that I had made for in the shaper with a piece of high-speed steel in there, and we're only going to feed it down maybe 100 thousandths or something. We'll just take it slow cuts and everything, but it should work fine. Alright, you can see it didn't turn out too bad. It's not great, but I'm not looking for precision on this piece, only because it's beat up already in the bead roller. But let me get this out of here, show you how this roller turned out, and then let's put it into the bead roller there and bake a test piece and see what it looks like. Alright, here's the roller. You can see it turned out pretty good. You saw me just put the keyway into it. Keyway turned out pretty good. Everything seems to fit nice, so I'm pretty happy with that. Like I said, the keyway's beat up on this a little bit, and if I had another keyway here, I'd probably just change it real quick, but really it's going to work fine for what it is. So you can see it goes right on. So there's what it did. It's actually pretty close to what I need. So all you do is really just stick it in here, crank her down, a little bit of tension on it, and you just roll it back and forth, and it makes your shape for you. And like I said, you can see it turned out pretty good. I won't say it's perfect, but it's really close to what was on the car, and it's about the right depth and everything. So we're gonna run with it. I could get a little bit better, but honestly, you're not gonna notice it. So, well, I'm gonna end this episode here. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so. And then until next time, take care.